So I've just had my last MRI before the surgery. Hopefully this is the last time I see Womford for a while, as my surgery and pre-op appointment it is a Nightingale hospital they've moved it to. So that MRI was alright. It wasn't as bad as, well, I don't know, I think it was worse than the last one actually. It was shorter. The last one was about an hour. This one was like 20 minutes, 25. Listen to some Heart. It's a lovely, lovely day, as you can see. And yeah, so it is just gone 9. So we were here pretty early. And yeah, it should be one of the last times I see this hospital, hopefully. I have been in pain for 3 years now. At the end of 2020, I sprained my lower spine and went to a chiropractor for treatment. After a few months, it eventually got better until the summer of 2022, when I had a massive flare-up again. So I went back to the chiropractor so she could assess it to see whether it was the same thing again or whether it was something different. She had a feel around and she ended up deciding that this was now in fact a disc bulge. After about 6 months or so, I finally ended up seeing Dr. Nigel Osborne at Womford in Exeter, and he sent me for an MRI so we could properly see what was going on. This MRI was in March, and it eventually revealed that I was suffering with a L5-S1 disc bulge that was pinching my sacroiliac nerve. When I spoke to my physio, she explained that this was why my symptoms, my pain was going down my left leg rather than just staying in my back like it had done when I sprained it. I spoke with spinal specialist Andrew Clark to discuss my next steps, and we agreed on the steroid injection being the best way forward. This injection was performed in June, and unfortunately, quite quickly I noticed that it hadn't worked and had actually increased my pain. So my pain was initially from the afternoon into the evening, and was about a 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. And then after having my steroid injection, I was waking up with pain, and it was the whole day, and it was about a 9 out of 10. I managed to get back in contact with the spinal clinic to discuss further, to say that it hasn't worked, and we eventually agreed on surgery being the next option. It was mentioned to me that the waiting list was then a year, but fortunately I had advice to be put onto the cancellation list, which then meant that I was seen within a couple of months. So I had initially been put on the list for the surgery in the summer of 2023, and then ended up phoning the spinal clinic, and she put me onto the day cancellation list on the Monday, and on the Friday I got a phone call to say, can you come in on Saturday for your appointment? I spoke to Caroline to ask how having sciatica changed her life.
It's affected quite a few aspects of my life actually. I've got small children, so just kind of lifting them up and things like that has been a challenge, because with sciatica it can be really debilitating. So I went for a stage where I couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't walk, I was crawling across the floor. And then you have good days where you are able to do kind of normal things, but you never know when you're going to kind of get a really severe attack again. And once you've got sciatica, you're always kind of prone to getting it again. And there's always an underlying issue as to why, because sciatica is a symptom of something else. So once you've got your diagnosis, it doesn't just go away. You have to deal with it every day of your life.
I also wanted to know how it affected Caroline's work life.
So when I had my really bad episode, I was signed off of work for I think about 7 weeks. I ended up being off of longer than that actually, because it was before the summer holidays, because I'm a teacher. And And it just impacted on everything about my work life, because when you're in pain, you're grumpy and you find it difficult to kind of do everyday tasks. So kind of coming in and standing up a lot or sitting down a lot, kind of everything affects you. So it's quite challenging to manage, which is why I ended up being kind of signed off. And actually a lot of people that have sciatica do end up being signed off at work at some point, because it can be really debilitating, like I said before.
Did you speak to a doctor about it, and have they given you any advice?
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few doctors. GPs tend to be more kind of, here, have some painkillers, like prescribing you things to kind of get you through, really, because they're not specialists. I have seen a specialist, I've had an MRI, and I'm now waiting to actually speak to a surgeon, just to kind of see what my options are, really. Really, the options are limited. It's either a surgery, which can be quite invasive, and there's several different surgeries that are optional, or a nerve blocker injection, which isn't always 100% effective and can make the symptoms worse as well. So you kind of end up being in limbo once you've been diagnosed and have your MRI, and it's a constant battle of going backwards and forwards from your doctor and trying to balance medication, and it can be really lonely as well.
After being in pain for a year and a half, the end was eventually in sight. I spoke with Dr. Henry Budd, and he's my spinal surgeon, and he discussed that he was very confident that he could get me in October. So this appointment was in September, and he was confident that he could get me in October. Unfortunately, due to my age, I found out that that wasn't the case, so I would have to wait until the next appointment after my birthday. And this week, actually, I found out that my confirmed surgery date is the 4th of December. So the only thing is, with the recovery time, it does put me out for 4 to 6 weeks. So I will be out of work and out of college for a while. So the surgery that they're actually doing is a microdiscectomy. So they will go in using a microscope and shave the disc bulge, rather than taking the whole disc out. So that is a better surgery, so I'll be under general anaesthetic for that one. I've done a lot of research into sort of the risks and the actual process, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident with it at the minute, and Henry Budd seems like a nice guy. It will be at the Nightingale Hospital, so I've heard good things about the staff there, which has also put me a lot at ease. So yeah, the end is finally in sight for me. Over the last 3 years, with different spurts of pain in my back, I have been limited to a lot of stuff. So there have been opportunities to go-karting, all this sort of adventurous stuff. And unfortunately, the pain that I was in limited me from that. And after my surgery, the main thing I'm looking forward to is being able to properly play with my cousins. That is all I want, to the point where my cousin is actually pretty excited for me to have the surgery so that we can go back to playing her favourite game of Fluff. So yes, there are more excitements than worries. The main one being that after this surgery, fingers crossed if all goes well, I can go back to being a normal 18-year-old.